All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to start talking about shortcuts for proving triangles congruent. Um, Yesterday we took a look at needing to have three sets of corresponding sides congruent and three sets of corresponding angles congruent, but today we're going to focus on some shortcuts. So you will need your flip charts out, and then the sub should have passed out a little half sheet to you. Um, and I'll explain kind of what we're doing with that as we make it through the video. So we're first going to start by filling out some information in our flip chart. So as you guys can see from the picture, we're still going to that corresponding parts flap, but now we are going to be writing on the bottom portion. There's five total, what in the world? There's five total methods for proving triangles congruent, and we're going to focus on three of them in this video. So as you guys can see over on like the right hand side over here, there's two more methods. So just make sure that you are leaving enough space. Okay? All right, so here we go. So again, this is going on the bottom half. Take a look at where we're writing. So the first one is called side, side, side. So basically we're going to be working through proving triangles congruent to each other. And these are going to be five different approaches that you can use to say that two triangles are actually congruent, so the exact same size. The first method is called side, side, side. And I feel like this one is slightly obvious as to what's going on. But basically, in order to use side, side, side to show that triangles are congruent, you would need all three sets of sides to be congruent between your two triangles. So if we had one triangle and then another, all three sets of sides would have to be marked congruent. Okay, and so when we get to our proofs, which we're really going to focus on those tomorrow, what you would say, oh, excuse me, in your reason is if all three sets of corresponding sides are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Okay, so you don't really need to know anything about the angle measures. If you know that all three sets of sides are congruent to each other, that's enough to say that the two triangles are congruent or equal in size. The next method is called side angle side. Now, what you can probably assume is that we're going to have two sides marked congruent and an angle marked congruent since it's called side angle side. What's important is the location of the angle that is marked congruent. So let's just start by drawing two triangles that look to be about the same size, like so. Now let's mark two sides congruent, and it really doesn't matter which two sides you mark congruent. So let's just do the one on the left and then the one on the bottom. This has two lines here, you guys. I don't know why my stylus is being all messy. And then this here is one. So where the angle needs to be located is if you guys look in the title of this method, side angle side, the angle has to connect the two sides together. So if we highlight the two sides that are marked congruent, we have this piece and we have this piece here. The angle that connects them is this guy here. So this has to be the angle that's marked congruent in order for us to be able to use side angle side. Okay, so then our reason for this would be, sorry, I don't know why this is all shifting around here. If two sides and the connecting angle are congruent. So that's what we're going to call this, is the connecting angle. Then your triangles are congruent. And then finally we have hypotenuse leg. Now, in order to create a hypotenuse within a triangle, you need to have a right triangle. Okay, so that's kind of key here. You need to have two right triangles. So now, if we draw our two triangles here and here, they have to be right triangles, and you're going to know they're right triangles because they're going to have that little box there. Now, one of the sides that has to be marked congruent is the hypotenuse. You should have learned at some point in time that the hypotenuse of a right triangle is located opposite the 90-degree angle. So this here and this here are the two hypotenuses of the triangle. So those have to be marked congruent because that's part of the title, hypotenuse. Now the leg comes from the other side that is marked congruent. Now there's two legs to every right triangle. They are the two sides that form the right angle. So if we mark the leg that's on the left, then in order to use hypotenuse leg, that means in the other triangle you also have to have the leg that's on the left, because the pieces have to correspond, they have to match up to one another. Okay, so then your reasoning for this is, if two right triangles have corresponding hypotenuse and leg congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Sorry that the writing is so terrible on these all of the time. This thing right here, whatever that looks like to you, that is actually the word then. Okay. So remember to save some space because we are going to be putting two more on this page at another time. So let's go through and just do some practice, okay? You guys don't have to write this down, but just kind of press pause when you need to kind of process and think about things. And then we'll just kind of hit play and continue when you're ready. So let's talk about the connecting angle, because when you are using side angle side, again, that's really important. If we had triangle MAT here, and we wanted to know the connecting angle between MT and TA, if we highlight MT here and we highlight TA here, what angle is going to actually connect them together? Is it going to be M, A, or T? Well, the answer is T. This is the angle that connects those two red lines together. Now what about in triangle PSC? So we want the connecting angle between CS and PS. So the angle that would have to be marked congruent in order to be the connecting angle would be angle S, because it connects those two sides together to each other. All right, so why don't you press pause for a second and look at the different diagrams and try to figure out, would it be side, side, side that you would use side angle side or hypotenuse leg? to show that these triangles are congruent, or potentially none of the above. Maybe the triangles can't be shown congruent. So when you're ready, press play. For number 1, let's take a look at the information that we have. So we have right triangles. All right, this is not working out well. So we have right triangles, okay? When you have a right triangle, you want to first check for hypotenuse leg. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be hypotenuse leg, but you should check for it. So, do we have right angles? Yes, we do, here and here. Are the hypotenuses of the two triangles marked congruent here and here? Yes, they are. And then, do we have a corresponding leg marked congruent? And the answer is yes, we do. So this would be congruent through hypotenuse leg. Now, it would not be, okay, if we had an example, let's say we had this to start. If we had this leg in the first triangle and this leg in the second triangle marked congruent, we could not use HL, or hypotenuse leg. Okay, it has to be corresponding legs that are marked congruent. Now, in the second example, let's take a look at what we have. Well, how many sides are marked congruent? We have one side here, and then we have the other side here. So we have two sets of sides. So we know we're either going SSS or SAS, and then we have to look at that other piece. So we have a side here, we have a side here, and then, oh, look it. We also have an angle marked congruent. So what you want to do is check and say to yourself, is this the connecting angle? And in this particular problem, it is, because this angle connects those two blue lines, or those two sides, together. So these two triangles are congruent through this side angle side method. Now, what about for number 3? We have two sets of sides marked congruent, so those sides are equal to each other, and these sides are congruent to each other. That just leaves us with two sides. But, excuse me, even though this third set of sides here is not marked congruent, we could say that this is congruent to itself through the reflexive property, if you guys remember that from our very, or maybe it was our second unit when we started talking about geometric properties. So that a segment is congruent to itself. Since these triangles kind of butt up next to each other, this segment is the same for both triangles. So therefore, we could say that they are congruent through side, side, side. Now, what about for number 4? Number 4, again, we have two sets of sides marked congruent. We have this set of sides, and we have this set of sides. And then we also have an angle marked congruent. So a lot of times people actually want to say that this is side angle side. But remember that angle placement is really important. That angle has to connect the two sides together. So if we look at where these two sides come together and meet, this angle in here is actually the connecting angle, but that is not the angle that is marked congruent. The angle that's marked congruent is this guy here. So therefore, we cannot use side angle side because it is not the connecting angle that's marked. Excuse me. So for this one, we just wouldn't be able to prove them congruent. Now for number 5, I'm going to go back to red. We have right triangles again. So what happens with diagrams like number 5 is people see the right angle and they see the right triangle, so they automatically jump to the hypotenuse leg being the method to use. But if you look at the sides that are actually marked congruent, is the hypotenuse marked congruent? And the answer is no. So it's not HL, okay? But we do have two sides here and here. marked congruent, and look at the placement of that right angle. That right angle is actually the angle that's going to connect those two sides together. So this, we could actually use side angle side as our approach. Excuse me. All right, moving on. So now, to keep this video shorter than what it originally was going to be, and just because of the fact that I am not here to teach you guys about triangle proofs, I just would like for you to write all of this stuff down on the very back side of your flip chart. So flip the entire thing over, okay? And you're writing on the very, very back. You can see up here, whoops, sorry about that. You can see my staples up here. So know that you are on the back side of the flip chart. All right, so copy all of this down. As you guys can see, there's a couple of little boxes there that I put on top of the flip chart. That is for stuff that we're going to add to this later. So leave some space on the back side so that we can fill in information underneath those boxes. The other thing too is up here. It's kind of hard to read what that says. Excuse me. It says, if you run out of givens and you need more congruent statements, look for special diagrams. And I will explain what all of that means tomorrow. So once you guys are done filling out the back side, you can actually move on to the homework. The sub did pass out a half sheet to you here. Hold on to this and we will actually just talk about it tomorrow. I don't want you guys attempting to do any triangle proofs before I can touch base with you. Okay, so these 3 problems we'll do tomorrow in class. So go back to the flip chart, copy this all down. When you guys are done with this, your homework is posted on Canvas. Okay, so make sure that you complete the homework. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck.